Hi, welcome to Chamber Connection. I'm Mary Hodson, president of the Hutchinson Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. I'm so glad that you joined us today. With me today, I'm so excited to have with me our Chief of Police here in Hutchinson, Minnesota, Tom Gifferson.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad that you're here. We're actually here to have some serious conversation, and I think that it's topical. We have had fires, and we've had theft, and in fact, we're probably going to do another segment with the chief of fire because he is, of course, on a fire run.
Right.
How does he work that timing?
I don't know. He's pretty good at it.
So we're going to get in. We're going to talk about business safety, some home safety tips, things like that, that can keep people safer in their homes and in their businesses.
Yeah.
Sound like a plan?
Yeah, great. Let's do it.
I'm just going to shoot off questions, and you just give me the answers, and we'll have a conversation.
All right.
So I am curious about what are the 3 to 5 key things that you think it's really important that businesses should do for their overall safety?
Okay. Well, I think probably number one, I think most businesses probably underestimate the benefits of good lighting, both interior and exterior, specifically exterior, especially when they're trying to protect their employees. LED lighting now is so inexpensive compared to where it was when it first came out that you really can improve the lighting to the exterior of your facility at a fairly reasonable cost. And so that would be probably the main one I could think of. Again, having a safety plan. I think we'll be talking about that a little bit later, but if you can have a safety plan in effect for both your employees and customers or what have you, that's a good thing to have. And just really practicing or training, making sure that your employees are aware of safety protocols within your business or establishment is probably another key way to keep them safe, keep the public safe while they're in your facility.
And I think this is an important topic because most people don't think about it until it's too late, right? And this became really important for me a few years ago because there had been a friend of mine who was killed in the chamber office by somebody that she knew and happened to be the only one there, right? And at the time, we had invited former Chief Hatton in to just talk to us about our own space and what we would do if there was an intruder. And so we're talking about lots of different types of safety. Like you said, employee safety. We're talking about safety and protection of your goods that you have. So someone might be coming to try to take something. That could be money, that could be a myriad of things, right? And lighting certainly is something that we don't always think about, right? Because you can do a lot of things in the dark.
Absolutely.
Right, and you can't see. So even if there's maybe some coverage, remember you guys have done a great job on your Facebook page, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Because you've been able to share video. And in particular, there was one, and it was an alley, and it was pretty dark, so you couldn't see everything that was happening. And so to your point, the lighting would have helped that situation.
Right. And so, I realize some establishments in the city don't have their own parking lot or that type of thing. Street lighting I think the city's done a really good job over the last couple of years of upgrading all their street lighting. So to me, that's not an issue. Really, it's more in private lots and that type of thing. And again, it's for that employee that has to go to their car by themselves in the evening after work. We're looking out for them, but we're also looking out for, again, your merchandise or your property. It may not prevent an act from happening, but it certainly will help us identify a suspect or what have you in the case.
Because surveillance is also something that's maybe not easy to access for some businesses, because contrary to popular belief, not every business person goes and lives on the beach and just lets somebody else run their store, right? They're normal people, just like you and I, and maybe that's not something that's affordable.
Right. I think that, but you do raise a good point. I think you can do something as simple as saying that surveillance is taking place on your premises, whether it is or not.
Sure.
It's okay to lie on a sign if you're trying to protect your business, right, or your employees. So that goes a long way. Mounting a camera, whether it works or not, in several strategic places around your business. Again, it's not necessarily going to catch anybody after the fact, but it may deter somebody from doing anything. So that would be another good tip.
My next thought goes to, okay, so if we're talking to the homeowner, would you say lighting is also important?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things we talk to homeowners, especially with the pretty extravagant landscaping and things people like to put around their homes. Unfortunately, it's a great place for people to hide as well.
Okay.
So, I would just encourage people, if they're going to do that type of landscaping where they have those shrubbery and that type of thing that's fairly large in front of their home, just accent it with some lighting. For obviously, it looks nice, but it also affords some protection as well.
So aesthetically pleasing and adds to your level of safety.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a twofer.
Yeah,
a twofer from Giffer.
Yeah,
I
nice.
love it. Yeah, you're gonna like that one, I bet. Yep. Okay. What is one thing that you notice that businesses put themselves at a risk on a daily basis?
Sure. Well, there's several things, but I think the one thing that comes to mind more than anything is, again, the lighting. But also not necessarily their personal safety or the safety of their employees, but putting their property or their merchandise at risk. The one thing that probably frustrates us the most is businesses that accept loss as just part of doing business, and they don't necessarily learn from it. So, the hard part is if people are successful stealing from your business, then they'll do it again. And then the word gets out to either their friends or other people that have like minds, and it becomes known fairly quickly where people can and can't steal successfully. Okay. So, again, that's probably one of the most frustrating things for us is, it's just acceptable loss, I guess, is probably what they would term it. And, obviously we're the police, so we want to solve every crime, or we want to catch.
The loss, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So is there a percentage, maybe you don't know this off the top of your head, but is there a percentage of recovery? Like if there are 5 losses in town, how many of those might you be able to recover?
Well, I think it's hard to quantify that just because we don't know. We don't know how many times a big box store will lose merchandise.
Sure.
Sometimes it's because they just don't report it. Again, it's an acceptable loss to them. Other times they don't know about it. So it's hard to say. Normally when we get called, especially on those more simple thefts like shoplifting and that type of thing, when we get called, they already have a suspect. So our success rate's pretty high on those. Again, because they've detained the person, or they have great pictures of the person, and we, again, if they're successful one time, they do it again, or they may go somewhere else. So those kind of people are familiar to us, so we would be able to recognize them. That's one thing I have to say about our officers is they take pride in knowing the citizens. They take pride in knowing people that we deal with frequently, so they can recognize them. They assist other agencies outside of Hutchinson, recognizing some of our citizens that don't necessarily obey the law all the time.
That's one of the things that I've learned over the years, because I've gotten to know some of the officers as they've come through Leadership Institute or some of the events that we do together. And you must have a great sense of pride because they take their job seriously, but they do know those little ins and outs of the community and those that might be a little bit more colorful than others.
Yeah, absolutely. If they're doing their job, they get to be familiar with different people throughout the community, good and bad, actually.
Right.
I mean, because we rely on the public or the citizens to be our partners in problem solving. That's kind of one of my big things is that's our role, is to be your partner in problem solving, whether it's trying to solve a crime or trying to solve a civil issue that you may have. If we can help you with that, we do that, you know. So.
That's awesome. Goes back to that Facebook page. You know, if you're on social media and you follow the Hutchinson Police Department, you can maybe help with one of those things, because you'll post you're looking for the public's help to find someone or identify somebody.
Yep, and sometimes we're successful, and sometimes we're not. And the times we're not, it kind of surprises me actually, because you know, Facebook and social media is a pretty wide open area right now, where pretty much everybody has some kind of social media on their phone.
Yep.
You'd think that someone would recognize somebody, but
Yeah.
a lot of times that just tells us they're not from the area too.
Sure. What is another good question? What is the most common police call for businesses?
Theft would be our most common. If we're talking how it relates directly to the business, probably our second most common call would be traffic crashes in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
You know, there's not probably a whole lot we can do about that, but we do get called for a lot of traffic.
The calls from the chamber are, we have an automobile against automobile on Main Street.
Yeah, that happens on occasion.
Yep, it does. So let's talk about that safety plan. How can a business create a safety plan? And when I talk about a safety plan, I'm talking about how can they have a written policy or a layout of their business that they can share and talk with their employees about what to do in case of.
Yeah, so I think yeah, I think you pretty much hit all the basics in your description of your question. Okay. So, you know, businesses have safety plans for multitude of different reasons. I think basically the one we're talking about here now is the safety and security of their employees and their customers. You know, so first off, let me step back. I think you can do it yourself. It's simple enough. There's enough resources on the internet to help you do it yourself. But there's also consultants that you could hire to come in, and they can help you with that, and they can write your safety plan for you. I will say one thing: the police department does not write safety plans for businesses. We'll be more than happy to look at them. We can give you advice on how we will respond to your safety plan, but we don't create them, we don't write them.
What? You already have enough to do?
Well, yeah, there's that. There's also a certain liability issue attached to that.
But I have to tease them, right?
Yeah.
I have to tease them a little bit.
But there are consultants that do that if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your own. But some of the basic things that you need to do when you're creating that is, first off, you have to identify what some of the issues might be. What are the dangers that your employees or your customers may encounter while they're in your facility? And once you've done that, then you have to determine, well, what would your response be, or how would you evacuate the building or the facility given this circumstance? And really, those are the two main responses to danger: is you either get out or you deal with it in some other
Fight
manner.
Fight or flight.
So yeah, so you just have to determine find what the dangers are, and then find out what your response to those dangers are going to be. Make sure you have them in a document. Make sure you train with your employees so that you're comfortable that they're all aware of what's in there and that they will respond appropriately if that encounter happens to come to their door. And really, you know, we say it all the time. You have to train till it's automatic.
Right.
And if you can do that, that's probably the basics to developing a safety plan. But again, it's there to make sure that your employees, your customers, anybody that may come into your facility is safe.
So if somebody calls and says there was somebody in our business, they were not a welcome guest, they've left, we're concerned about safety, what are you going to ask them?
So the person that calls,
Yeah, I'm
well,
on the phone and there was somebody here.
yeah.
You're going to ask me some questions.
Well, I think
Because I think people don't think about that next step.
yeah, I think the first question that we're going to ask is, are they welcome in your establishment after today? So if the answer is no to that, then our advice is going to be, well, the most simple thing to do is to trespass them from your property. And probably the easiest way to do that is to send them a letter, a certified letter through the post office. Once you have that letter back, to give us a copy of the letter, give us a copy of the proof that it's been delivered, and then we'll put that in a case file. If that person happens to come back to your business, 3 easy numbers, 911, we respond, we arrest the individual for being on your property.
So now in that instance, you assume that you know who the person is.
Yes.
So now we've had somebody, I'm just going to be honest, I'm thinking the fact that we're on Main Street,
Yep.
right? People come in, they're looking for something because we're now the new phone book. If you're not sure about that, we are.
The police department is. You might be our backup.
We should really find out what your calls look like versus ours. So somebody comes in, they're agitated, we don't know who they are, they leave, we see them show a weapon when they walk out the door. You're going to be asking us very different questions now.
Yeah, we're just going to need a description of the individual, direction of travel. Did they
are
make
they
any
wearing?
threats? Yeah.
See, that's the thing. This is what I've learned. What are they wearing? How tall do you think they were? Black jacket. Okay, well, that's great. Well, there are 3 people on Main Street that have black jackets. Did they have blue jeans on? I have learned over the years to be much more disciplined, training,
Yeah.
to look for more details.
Yeah.
Because we can literally see an accident happen on Main Street, and we tease with our neighbors across the street that they see the exact same accident, but it looks completely different in our minds, right? And so to learn to look for some of those additional details, really important for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly speeds things up if this is an ongoing situation and we need to identify and speak with this person immediately. Then we would, as much detail as you can provide is going to help us the most. If we have to stop 3 like-looking people on Main Street based on your description, we will do that and deal with the ramifications of doing that later. But yeah, the better the description, the more quickly we can find a resolution to the issue.
Right. And no, just to clarify, we did not have somebody come in the chamber who left showing a weapon. It's hypothetical. What would, if anything, would happen to an employee? Would they be charged if they were to subdue or hurt an intruder who had ill intent in your business or maybe even in your home? What are your rights there?
Well, so you have some different rights, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, maybe I'm not using the right term.
I think that would be probably the best layman's term to use. At least the one that most people would kind of understand what we're talking about. You have different rights, whether you're in your home or if you're in your business.
Oh, okay.
So you have a right to protect yourself, your family, protect others, right?
So I can use a tire iron or something off the washing machine if that's what I've got handy.
Well, again, your force, just like the police, your force has to be reasonable. It has to be reasonable compared to the threat or the perceived threat. Okay, so it wouldn't be appropriate if someone, just entered your home without knocking and you were sitting there and you attacked them, right?
Gotcha. Right.
But on the other hand, if you're in fear of your life, you feel like you're going to be harmed, you have the right to use reasonable force to defend yourself.
Okay.
You don't have the same right to use force to protect your property. So if you're a retailer and you have somebody in your store that's trying to steal from you, you don't have that same, property doesn't have the same value as a life.
As a human life.
Okay? So
That makes sense to me.
in a case like that, you may be charged with with assault of some sort, depending on, again, your example of a tire iron. That's a pretty significant assault.
Right.
And if they're just trying to steal a candy bar, let's say, or
Does that make sense?
or let's say a TV, they're trying to steal a TV, and you crack them with a tire iron, that probably wouldn't be seen as reasonable.
When I was writing these questions, it was the first thing that came to mind is something that would be heavy and would hurt. Because it could just be a real iron or a chair or something else you picked up. But it's interesting to note that there is a difference between your home and your family versus your business.
Correct.
And stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
Here's a really good one. And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway because it's your box, your lane, your profession. When should a business call 911?
The easy answer is you should call 911 whenever you think you have to. If you think you might have to, then that you probably need to.
Okay.
If the water's backing up in your basement, that's probably not an appropriate use of 911. However, again, anytime you feel that it's an emergency, by all means, give us a call. We just had an incident not too long ago where, due to technical difficulties, the landlines were down in some areas of town. So people were trying to call the police department on our admin line, couldn't get through. Obviously, it's okay to call 911 for a routine call, something like that. It's always okay to call 911. If we routinely use 911 for just normal everyday business, then you might have a chat with an officer about that. But we're never going to tell somebody not to call 911. But even if you're using the admin line, I think I'll even go back a little bit and say, if you think you need the police department to respond, by all means call. There's never a time when we're going to get somewhere and say, why'd you call us? At least we better not, or then they'll be talking to me about it.
Right.
But there may be some times when we think to ourselves, why'd you call the police for this? But we better not ever say that to anybody.
Right. Over the years, several officers have said to me, we would rather you call 911 because you're not sure than to wish you had called 911 when you thought about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's just like a lot of other things. If you're laying there thinking, geez, I should have called 911, that's a bad situation, right?
Yep.
So we'd much rather take care of things on the front end than dealing with the aftermath, because you either thought, well, the police are too busy, or this isn't a big deal, and that. Just call us if you think you need us.
So let's just also clarify, 911 is not to find out what time the twins play.
Correct.
911 is not the time, the place to call if you need to find a phone number for the grocery store. Those are great calls for the Chamber of Commerce.
Perfect.
Those are great calls for somebody else. But 911, when you're making those types of calls, when something or someone is not in danger.
Right.
Right?
Well, the hard part is that we only have so many dedicated 911 trunk lines. So if our 911 line is being occupied by somebody, again, reporting or asking for information that could have been gained elsewhere, or some other non-emergency call, then somebody that truly is having an emergency, their response time is going to be delayed. Now, it's not like it won't get through. It'll continue to roll over until somebody finally answers it. But again, there's that delay in an emergency situation.
And if you're in a true emergency and somebody's not picking up, that makes your emergency that much more fretful.
Absolutely.
I think.
I would
Because
agree
if I'm
100%.
calling 911, it doesn't matter. I've had to call 911 on a couple of occasions, and it doesn't matter what it is. I know it's the right thing to do. That doesn't mean that I'm not still a little shaky about the situation, right?
Yep.
So if somebody's not picking up,
Yep. And the majority of people never call 911.
yep,
So for people to call 911, it's a big deal normally. The unfortunate thing is with police work is we either see people at their best or we see people at their worst. Very rarely do we see people for the first time in the middle somewhere. And
Right.
so, I mean, and we're conscious of that as well. So, yeah, it gets to be a big deal for people, and it's understandable why that is too.
yeah, absolutely. I cannot thank you enough for coming and doing this today. I know you've got other things, but I also want to make sure that we get really good information out to the community. And so I just want to thank you again, and for your whole team who do such a great job. They're also really good at supporting each other and backing up, because I know that with staffing and the way it's been this last year, and I also know, and I'm going to say on behalf of our community, because I know that this has also not been a fun year to be in the safety world, right? Public safety. I know that you've probably had some really tough days, and so thank you to you and your whole team. I know it's a group effort.
Yes.
I know that you get to come and sit here because you're so lucky, right? But please extend that to the rest of your team for all of us, because we all really appreciate the things that you all put up with
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
I absolutely will, and I would be upset with myself if I didn't leave here without thanking the community for all the support that we've received over the last year or so. It's truly been overwhelming. I tell everybody that will listen, we're truly lucky to be working in a community that we are. It's just, again, it's been overwhelming, so we appreciate that as well.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. And what a great thing to be able to say. So I had 2 meetings prior to this today, and both meetings the same thing. How lucky are we to be in a community like Hutchinson that supports each other and is so collaborative in the good and the bad. If you have questions about anything that we've talked about today or any of the work that we do, go ahead and go to explorehutchinson.com or give us a call at 587-5252. You can put that right on your refrigerator or right by the phone. You don't have to call Tom's staff. Give us a call at 5252. Thanks again.
Thank you.